Praise God, saints. I'm Pastor Rudolph Porter, proud pastor of Shalom Missionary Baptist Church in Tifton, Georgia. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we know that you are omniscient. You know all things. We know you are omnipresent. You are everywhere at the same time. And we know that you are omnipotent. You have all power and authority. Dear Heavenly Father, show us your plan, your purpose, and your will for our lives. Bless every person under the sound of my voice. Bless every family that's represented here in Tifton, Georgia, and around the world. Father, lead us and guide us. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. The scripture will come from Job chapter 1, verses 18 through 22, and Romans chapter 8, verse 28. Job chapter 1, beginning with verse 18, and it reads, "While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house." 19. "And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the four corners of the house. And it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee." Verse 20. "Then Job arose and rent his mantle, and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground and worshipped." 21. "And said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return to. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." 22. "In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly." Romans chapter 8, verse 28, and it reads, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose." I would like to use as a subject or thought for those who are listening, bad news won't change my mind about God. Bad news won't change my mind about God. Church, if you live long enough on this earth, you will have many experiences. You will experience good times. You will experience bad times. You will experience happy times. You will experience sad times. You will experience prosperous times, meaning successful in material things, flourishing financially. But you will also experience times when you are broke, busted, and disgusted. And I've experienced both. I've had times when I had plenty of money, stock was high, and I've experienced times when I couldn't pay any bills. That's just a part of the ups and downs of life. Church, if you live long enough, you will receive both bad and good news, and you will respond to and act on both bad and good news. Webster's dictionary defines bad as an adjective, as naughty or disobedient, unfavorable, inferior, poor, spoiled, offensive, invalid. Webster's dictionary defines news as a noun, plural, meaning as current happenings, matter considered newsworthy. Church, don't let bad news change your mind about God. Church, don't let bad news change your mind about God. John 10:30, Jesus said, "I and my Father are one." Church, God the Father and Jesus the Son are one in purpose and operation. I try to remind the members of Shallows of that each and every time I preach. Church, God allows things to happen to us and to people we know to show us his one grace which is favor or kindness shown without regard to worth or merit of the one who receives it, and in spite of what that person deserves. Church, God allows things to happen to us to show his mercy, which is the aspect of God's love that causes him to help the miserable, just as grace is the aspect of his love that moves him to forgive the guilty. The songwriter put it this way: I'm so glad trouble don't last always. Job in chapter 14 verse 1 said, man born of a woman is of a few days and full of trouble. The songwriter said, may not come when you want him, but he's just on time. Church, come what may, God is still in charge. Church, bad news won't change Pastor Porter's mind about God. And church, you shouldn't let bad news change your mind about God. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 through 8, and it reads, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. Verse 4, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. 7, be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. Verse 8, it will be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. Church and listening audience, it is not a person's trust in his or her ability and resources, but trust in the Lord that will bring wholeness and fulfillment of life. Bad news won't change my mind about God. And to the church and our listening audience around the state of Georgia, the United States of America, and the world, don't let bad news change your mind about God. Church, in the book of Job, chapter 1, verses 18 through 22, it talks about Job. First of all, church, Job was a blameless and upright man. He owned 7,000 sheep, 7,000 camels, 7,000 oxen, 7,000 donkeys. Job had servants working for him. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Now, church, I don't know any perfect and upright people. There are some people who love the Lord and follow the Lord's commandments, but Pastor Porter is not a perfect and upright man. But here, Job, church, according to the Bible, was not only perfect, but upright. In other words, he wasn't pretending to be righteous. He was righteous. Church, Satan insisted that the integrity of Job had never been tested. What is integrity? Integrity is honesty, sincerity, singleness of purpose. Jesus called for purity of heart. Matthew 5 and 8 said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Out of the heart flows, church, the issues of life. You remember when God sent the prophet Samuel to Jesse's house to anoint the second king of Israel after Saul had messed up. And Samuel thought that oldest son, Eliab, was it. But God says, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Church, a pure heart is one that is wholeheartedly devoted to God. Church, Job received a first-hand report of the calamities that directly impacted his life. Webster Dictionary defines calamity as a noun, or calamities plural, as misfortune or great distress, adversity or mishap, great misery. We're going to face calamities. children acting up, husband acting up, wife acting up, neighbors acting up, supervisors on our job. We're not going to get through this world without calamities. Job lost all of his livestock. Job lost most of his servants because they would all come back saying, and I alone am remaining to tell you what has happened. And I'm the only one remaining to tell you this report. Sometimes, church, everything falls apart all around us in this life. But the devastating part is one thing to lose material stuff. But Job lost his 10 children, his 7 sons, and his 3 daughters. I can just imagine a perfect and upright man losing everything and his children. Yet he still held on to his integrity. Job chapter 1, verse 20 through 22 reads, Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshiped. Verse 21, and said, here's the key, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. 22. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Church, in Job chapter 2, verse 7, church, God allowed, here's the key, he allowed Satan to smote Job with sores and balls from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. In Job 2, 9 through 10, then said his wife unto him, dismiss Job, dost thou still retain thine integrity? His wife said, curse God and die. Verse 10. But he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaking. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? Church, in all this did not Job sin, nor curse God with his lips. Church, don't let bad news change your mind about God. Some people are what I call quiet, super quiet. No matter what happens in their life, they don't tell anybody. But if we're living on this earth, every one of us are going to experience bad news. And keeping quiet about it doesn't change the impact it has on your life. Church, bad news is a certainty in human experience. But don't let bad news change your mind about God. Church, bad news can come in the form of a negative medical report. But don't let bad news change your mind about God. Church, bad news can come in the announcement of a serious accident to a loved one, a friend, a neighbor. But don't let bad news change your mind about God. In the book of Romans chapter 8, 28, it reads, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Church, our present life, is characterized by suffering, but we are sustained by the hope of our ultimate good, our glorification. To glorify, church, is to praise and worship God, to magnify God through praising his name and honoring his commandments. Church, we can take comfort in the promise that what is happening to us is controlled and directed by God for our good. And old folks used to say he's too wise to make a mistake. We will not always, church, understand or enjoy the things we experience, but we can rest assured that we will not experience anything God does not allow to happen to us for our present and future good. God inspired me in 1999 to move from Anderson, Indiana to Douglas, Georgia, and he told me he wanted me to do a greater work for him. Shortly after I moved to Douglas, Georgia, working for a company called Tecumseh, I looked up, and For the first time in my life, I was fired. Never been fired before in my life. That's bad news. Shortly thereafter, all of my stocks and bonds were bogus. You remember Enron and WorldCom? That hit me first. Looked like everything that was happening to me was bad. But I still had an inner peace that God was working inside of me and that I was still in the will of God. A couple of years later, the whole country found out that these banks and these stocks were not real, not bogus. But I still trusted God. Church, bad news is going to come in our lives. But when bad news come in our lives, it's just God's way of getting us ready to share our testimony with other people who haven't experienced the level of bad news we have overcome. Church, don't let bad news change your mind about God. I want the world to know that God is still in charge. Church, we must trust God in all circumstances. God always replaces the darkness of our existence with light of His presence when we remain faithful to Him. It is our faithfulness that makes the difference. The songwriter puts it this way: trouble in my way, I have to cry sometime. Trouble in my way, I have to cry sometime. I lay awake at night, but that's all right. Jesus will fix it after a while. When Jesus went to that Garden of Gethsemane, and he had asked his disciples to just watch while he prayed. He didn't ask them to pray. He asked them to watch while he prayed. And he looked in that cup. And when he looked in that cup, he saw all of the things that were going to happen to him. And when he saw those things, he prayed, Father, if there's any way I can fulfill my assignment without going through this on the physical side, let it be done. But then he said, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. Jesus had to go to that cross for your sin and my sin. They whipped him from hall to hall. They lied on him. They took him and they misused him. His disciples fled and were afraid. But he went to Calvary cross, stood on that cross. You know, pastors sometimes get real theatrical on this, but the point is, he endured the cross for your sin and my sin. They killed him, put him in a bar tomb. He stayed there Friday night, Saturday night, but early Sunday morning, God raised him from the dead, giving him all power in heaven and earth. Trouble in my way, I have to cry sometime. Trouble in my way, I have to cry sometime. I lay awake at night, but that's all right. I know that Jesus, he will fix it after a while, Trouble in my way, I have to moan sometime. Trouble in my way, thank you, Sister Dave. I have to moan sometime. I lay awake at night, but that's all right. Thank you, Sister Dave. I know that Jesus will fix it after a while. Thank you, Dr. Nate. Stepped in the furnace a long time ago. A deacon here helping me too. Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego. No, they weren't worried, church. This I know, I know that Jesus will fix it. Thank you, Dr. Day. After a while, trouble in my way, I have to cry sometime. Trouble in my way, Lord. Thank you, Dr. Day. I have to cry sometime. Thank you, Sister Day. I lay